Brother Eric John Phelps with 24/7 radio podcast today on this September the 19th, 2025. My guest, the George Widger, as we begin to further ferret out all the Jesuit temple coadjutors and designs they're pulling now 2020, furthering Satan's mystery of iniquity to the end that he would have his Antichrist sit in the third Hebrew temple being worshipped as God for 3.5 years, pursuant to Revelation 13 and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. So, Brother George, welcome to the broadcast.
Well, thank you, Brother Eric. As always, it's a pleasure to be on with you.
Okay, it's always a pleasure to have you. I have been told that I'm kind of quiet, not able to be heard, so I'm going to speak closer to the microphone and turn up the volume a little bit, and it should be better. So, why don't you go ahead, George, and tell us what you have for us.
Okay, so before I get to the scripture verse, I just found out that I rank in the top 100 list of your favorite guests. So that's an honor.
I don't have 20 guests. Go ahead. Glad you're.
Well, I just found out I made the top 100, so that's impressive. Okay.
Okay, George. You earned it, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, I did. Okay, so my scripture verse is 1 John 2, verse 19. 1 John 2, verse 1-9, which says, "They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would no doubt have continued with us. But they went out, that they might be made manifest that they were not of us." Now, this has been a problem for about 2,000 years, ever since the church came into being, whatever exactly that was. However, it seems as if that in the 21st century, specifically in the social media age, this has become a much more salient point because that has become popular, a concept that has become popular in recent years, is this whole idea of deconstructing. Well, you probably can figure out what that means. So, deconstructing is the opposite of constructing, building something. Deconstructing is basically tearing something down. And I guess there are a number of prominent social media personalities who said, "Oh, yes, I grew up in such and such church, PCA, Presbyterian Church of America, or Independent Baptist, or whatever, and I now outgrew that. Not only have I abandoned Christianity, I have abandoned all the pillars of it: white, white supremacy, patriarchy, i.e., male control, sexism, heteronormativity, i.e., being a straight, normal person, and of course, capitalism. Now, I'm doing everything I possibly can to fight those evils. Well, even though I no longer believe in God, thank God I'm an atheist." So, do you have a response?
Now, my response is it's just typical Jesuitical debauching of Western civilization under the guise of some sort of self-righteous or just attack with all these labels. They twist the truth into these evil labels and then they want to put you there. So it's just more propaganda, and I'd be happy to debate anybody about that. So they just want to attack and get furious and do bodily harm and have ad hominem attacks. And they're really unreachable and unreasonable. So you have to go to the next step, which is physical resistance. Go ahead, George.
Well, I don't think this should come to blows. I mean,
Oh, it
there
will.
was a,
It has to. It has to. We have to. There is no resolving this problem any other way. I'm sorry to say that, George, but that's just the history of the Reformation. All the Catholics were busy trying to destroy the Protestants. Let's take, for example, Prague, 1600s. They were persecuting the Protestants in Prague and Czechoslovakia until finally they had enough. The government was persecuting them. So a Protestant went to the second floor office of the governor of Prague, mayor of Prague, and threw him out the second floor window. And that started the first 30 years war. So it's got to go to violence. It's going to have to resolve it with violence, unfortunately, because debate is over. They are incapable of debate on reason, logic, and common sense. So you have to take it to the next step. Unfortunately.
Okay. Okay. Do you mind if I mention something completely off topic that had nothing to do with any of the material I had prepared?
Sure.
And may I?
Of course, my brother.
Okay. So I just came across a movie clip from one of the Omen movies, where these sci-fi horror films from, I guess, the 1970s, in which the Antichrist or the son of Satan was born. Okay, I haven't watched those movies in decades, but this is somebody's playing a clip, I guess, of Damien, who's supposed to be the son of Satan or Antichrist or whatever he is, and I guess he's going to one of these posh schools in England. Now, granted, I believe this is supposed to be the 1970s, and so the teacher there is asking his students about history, and they're talking about the Napoleonic Wars. And Damien, I guess, is laughing with one of his classmates. And the professor said, "Well, young man, do you find what I say amusing?" And he said, "Oh no, sir." "Okay, so what was I talking about?" "Oh, you were talking about the Napoleonic Wars, sir." "Yes." "So do you happen to know how many men Napoleon lost in Russia?" "Oh, 400,000." "Really?" "Okay, first, I didn't know that, but that was a huge number of men, given the fact that this took place over 200 years ago. So it wasn't as
How
if
many men died in Russia then?
400,000.
400,000. They weren't just Russians, they were also French too.
Well, no, that's how many troops Napoleon lost.
Almost
And so then
400,000.
now granted, in this ridiculous premise, this is supposed to be the son of Satan. Oh, okay, so when did Napoleon die? Oh, 1821. Really? Okay, so what did the 30 Years' War in? 1848. Okay, so when did Abraham Lincoln
No,
die?
no, no.
1865.
30 Years' War ended in 1640.
Oh, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. 1648. So then he began, rattling off all these battles and all these famous people who died, these generals, these presidents, and so forth. And I said, "Wow, I'm impressed with all your knowledge. How do you know all this?" He says, "I was there." Okay, I realize he said that for comedic effect, but in a sense, that's true. What do all these events that I just mentioned, 30 Years' War, or the first 30 Years' War, the death of Abraham Lincoln, the Napoleonic War, what nexus do all those events have?
Well, they're all connected to Rome and the Jesuit order. Is that the
Uh,
answer you were looking for?
well, yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll take that. So I try to make this as interactive as possible. Since the audience can't participate, you'll have to be their proxy.
Okay, I'll try. I'll try, George.
Okay. So, anyhow, so did the number of deaths in the Napoleonic War or the Napoleonic invasion of Russia surprise you,
It did
given the
because it did because Napoleon had 250,000 troops at Austerlitz. So 400 seems a large amount, but I'll just have to check that out. Remembering, of course, that Napoleon was advised by Abbassius, and Abbassius was Jesuit trained. He was Napoleon's second consul in the consulate, and he was the Jesuit advising Napoleon what to do. So the Jesuits had a tremendous harvest killing off French men who loved liberty, whether they be Catholic or Protestant. The the heretic Russian Orthodox, got to get rid of them. And they also waged war in Germany that would result in the destruction of Lutheran Protestants. So it was a tremendous harvest for the Jesuit order in overseeing their great avenger of the Roman Catholic countries that suppressed them during that horrible time of Napoleonic Wars from, I think, 1799 to 1814, 15 years.
okay. So anyhow, so I know. Okay. listen, I'm looking at my notes here. Oh, okay. So so
Can you read your notes, George, or are you getting like me, finding it difficult to read your own notes? Go ahead.
well, well, one of my resolutions for 2025 was stop getting old. But I, but I,
That would be a good resolution, George, and maybe we can work on that together.
okay, but I'm having a hard time sticking through with my sticking to my resolution. Okay, so I know you've done at least three broadcasts regarding the whole Charlie Kirk situation. I was able to listen to the first two. Sorry, I'll have to get to the third one. And for those who don't know, or just as a quick reminder, I guess last week on the 10th, on Wednesday the 10th, Charlie Kirk was at a speaking event at a debate at a
Now, who is Charlie
university.
Kirk, George, for the listeners? Who is he?
So, who is or was Charlie James Kirk, born on the 14th of October, 1993? Well, he was one of the co-founders of Turning Point USA. I believe they started out in Southern California, then they moved to Phoenix. And so he, along with William Montgomery, co-founded this organization, which is supposed to be conservative. They have debates and go to campuses across the U.S. and they have a podcast. And Kirk, I guess, was at an event last week in Utah, and I guess about 3:23 p.m. local time, a mountain, he was shot, fatally shot. Now, you're okay. You're of the opinion that he was actually killed.
That's right.
Okay. Now, I don't mean to sound contrarian, but there are a number of people who were wondering whether the shooting was what actually took place. I'm not going to broach that subject. Well, actually, I am.
Yes, you
So,
are, George. You're going to broach that subject. I knew it was coming. Go ahead.
okay. So I'm not
By the
taking a
way, my
different.
wife doesn't believe he was shot either, so I guess you're in good company. So if you want to talk about it, that's okay, because she wanted to know what you thought. So here's your opportunity.
Okay. So, well, let's see. Okay, he would profess to be a non-denominational Christian. Now, his wife slash widow, Erica, that's a different story. She grew up Catholic. She got her undergrad degree from Regis University in Aurora, Colorado, which is outside of Denver. Prior to that, I believe
And
she
who
went
runs
to
Regis? Who runs Regis?
is Society of Jesus, aka the Jesuits.
Okay,
Also,
so she's Jesuit trained.
correct. Also, according to one of your listeners, Tim in Florida, she went to a Catholic high school, I believe, Notre Dame. So she had at least 8 years of Catholic slash Jesuitical education. And she, at least for right now, she's the acting head of Turning Point USA. And I guess
Right.
over the weekend,
By the way, I just heard that at Charlie Kirk's funeral, Tucker Carlson is going to be speaking. J.D. Vance, president, is going to be speaking. Who else? But Tucker Carlson, I think I said he's going to be speaking. But guess who's not going to be allowed to speak?
who's not going to be allowed to speak?
Candace
It is,
Owens. Candace Owens.
ah,
Yep. So we could talk about those reasons, but really not right now. Go ahead, George. This is your time.
okay. And I realize uh, there's going to be, this may sound redundant because you've covered most of these points. So forgive me if this sounds overly familiar. So I guess his wife or slash widow, Erica, is the acting head of Turning Point USA, and she recently did a video in which she appears to be wearing a Maltese cross.
That's correct. So
Okay, so
I have concluded based upon that she is a Dame of Malta. And she will be in company of other Knights of Malta when she's ruling Turning Point, because they intersect the Council for National Policy, which has several predominant Knights of Malta. So I see this as the new right move led by the Knights of Malta to bring their new right to power. Because remember, Knights of Malta are always on the side of the right And the Jesuits are always on the side of the left, but the synthesis is coordinated by both of them to the ends of what the Pope wants. So go ahead.
Okay, so this was what 9, 10 days ago, but it seems more like 9 or 10 years ago because so many things have happened since then. Now, I try to get a pulse of social media. I'm not on it constantly, but there are certain people whom I follow. And in the last week or so, there have been all sorts of accusations and recriminations as to who was responsible for the shooting, assuming it did take place. Those on the left, either the communist socialists, say, oh no, it was those on the right because Charlie wasn't conservative enough for them. But those on the right will say just the opposite. And of course, the purported shooter, Tyler Robinson, who, by the way, several people said he bears an uncanny resemblance to Lee Harvey Oswald. That's no joke.
Really? I don't see any resemblance, but go ahead.
Okay, neither do I, but others have. Well, you could say
Well, they're both patsies. I mean, so that's the common ground. They're both patsies. I don't believe Tyler Robinson ever shot around from the roof. There was some sort of a rifle shot from that direction, but I don't believe there was a bullet attached to it. So there's no evidence of any trajectory reading anything. So
okay, so
anyway, no, that was just a bang. That shot from the roof was a distractionary shot, just like the shot from the grassy knoll was a discretionary shot. Nobody hit anybody from the grassy knoll. I don't care what James Files has said with his fireball or shot that he took. That was a sheer distractionary shot at the grassy knoll. Real shot comes from the driver and the storm drain shooter. So it's the same way here now in Utah. Distractionary shot from the rooftop or from a window underneath the rooftop or someplace, but it's not a shot. There's no bullet. It's just a big bang to get the attention of the people to turn away from where they heard the shot so that they will not be focused on the real killers that were right next to Charlie, which were 4 of his bodyguards.
okay, so all right, well, so let's just take the tack that yes, Charlie Kirk was killed. In your opinion, this is pure speculation. Why?
Why? Why isn't that the great question? Who, what, where? Six friends have I. Who, what, where, how, when, and why. And as Oliver Stone has in his movie JFK, when Garrison is talking to Sutherland there, when Costner's talking to Sutherland, Garrison's talking to X. X says to him, that's the real question, why? And the first question that he puts forth is, who benefits? And that's always the major question to ask, who benefits? Well, does not Trump benefit from this? Is this not further driving white men who have been victimized by Black savagery and socialism, communism, and you name it, homosexuality, shoved down our throats for the last 50, 60 years? And they're bringing us to the place of utter desperation without any obvious place to go other than the new right, headed by Trump, Hesketh, and J.D. Vance, and these other Roman Catholics. So the great benefit is going to go to Donald Trump, which means you have to consider him as a player. The benefit is going to go to the Pope's Zionist, labor Zionist government of Israel, which are for the Jews living in their land. It is their land given to them with the Abrahamic covenant. But the government that runs Israel runs Pope, not for the benefit of the Hebrew, Jewish, Israelitish people. As I proved with, well, there's 2 instances. The attack on the USS Liberty by the Israeli Navy and Air Force, and the giving up of Gaza to the Muslim Arabs in 2005 by Ariel Sharon, supposed hero of the Yom Kippur War. So These are two examples how popes, labor Zionist, or Likud government of Israel always works to the detriment of the Jews living in their land and for the benefit of the papacy to keep the agitation going so that the final Pope of Rome, when he comes to power, puts forth his covenant with many for 7 years of Daniel 9:27. He will then break the covenant, go down into man to be worshipped as God in the temple, 30 temple. So the temple is to be built for the Pope. So the purpose of this Hamas war that's going now into the Qatar and others is to have a huge war there, and in the midst of it, to bring down the temple, the mosque and the temple, the mosque and Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Dome of the Rock, in Jerusalem, so that the third Hebrew temple can be built. And that's why our great purpose is to blame the Jesuits for this and not the Jews. And this is what's going to be the great choice of American people. It's either going to be the Jesuits and blame them for it, or the Jews and blame them. Germany made the mistake and blamed the Jews. They could have easily blamed the Jesuits. Go ahead, George.
Okay, so this is complicated, and so yes, and so I'm not sure how to respond. What I will say is this, in terms of geopolitics, you talk about the big picture, the big game. But if I can just talk about on the ground level, some of the things that'll probably happen is this will further be used as justification to increase the police state surveillance, such as I'm not sure if they're going to be having events like this anymore, where somebody like a Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro will be allowed to go to a campus and debate people. Or if they do, it'll be just like going to court or going to the airport. You'll have to pass through security. You'll have to go through a metal detector and empty out your pockets. And if that's the case, that's going to put a damper on events like this.
Well, George, just remember, if you're going to go to Disneyland or Disney World, you got to go through the same thing. You got to go through a checkpoint. They check everything, your purse, your wallet, everything before you get in. They could do the very same thing with these on these college campuses, but they got to have some serious security and not these conspirators. So if you have proper security, that are not a bunch of conspirators, and you have proper checking of the people, and the vast majority of people don't have any weapons, then you can still do it, because I think it's tremendously beneficial to have this interaction that doesn't take place in any other place other than these campuses. Go ahead.
Okay, and then probably long term, certain jurisdictions like California, New York, and so forth will use this as a pretext to further pass more draconian anti-Second Amendment laws.
Oh yeah, they're going to use it to try to take the guns or more anti. Because remember, there's 20,000 gun laws on the books. I mean, how many more do you need? And they always try to shove another gun law down your throat when the government, when this emergency war powers military government run by the Pope, commits one of their crimes. They did that with the Kennedy assassination. It was, but what, 6 years later, 5 years later, they came out with the 1968 gun law, which was a wicked thing taken from Hitler's gun control law of 1935. So they're going to try to do it again and again and again. The Socialist, Communist, Radical Democratic Party, totally run by the Jesuit order, to cause this agitation, to disarm the people, and further it so that when the new right comes over, we'll all be disarmed. Because remember, Hitler disarmed the German people along with Joseph Stalin, along with Mao Zedong. The communists always disarmed their people, as well as the new right fascists.
Well, it's interesting. If I could just make another observation, since at least the 1930s, when we've had, during FDR, during the New Deal or the Jew Deal, as some people call it.
Yeah, they call it the Jew deal, but we will call it the Jesuit Socialist Communist deal. Because remember, that's when the Jesuits seized every person, place, and thing in this country on March 9th, 1933. Probably with FDR's Proclamation 20. Go ahead.
Well, have you noticed? So over basically the last 90 years, through electronic media, for a long time with the radio, and more recently with podcasts, they've always been able to have controlled opposition to people who are criticizing the regime. FDR in the 30s, Bill with Charles Coughlin, Father Charles Coughlin, Rush Limbaugh in the 1990s and the 21st century. He trash talked Bill Clinton on a daily basis. And more recently, in the last say decade or so, you've had these podcasters such as Charlie Kirk, who are able to grouse about what's going on. But that's permitted. They said, "Oh, gee, these leftist communist socialist policies are terrible. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, these are terrible." But okay, yes, you are correct, Tucker. You are correct, Charlie or Michael Savage. But who's responsible?
That's right. Who done it? Who done it? And that's where we come in and prove it's the Jesuit order using various sundry kinds of their proxies. They can be Jews, they can be Gentiles, Freemasons, Bonesmen, Boule, whatever you want to call them. But they're all proxies for the Jesuit order because we have to accept the truth. The Jesuit order, the Society of Jesus, is the most powerful secret society in the world, controlling all the intelligence communities, the press, academia, all of it. And so until we come to the conclusion that they run it, then we can't come to the conclusion that they control both the leftists and the rights for the purpose of bringing off their result or their synthesis, which is more centralization of power, loss of personal rights, loss of gun rights, loss of the Reformation, more forced miscegenation, more destruction of the white race peoples in American white Protestant nations. It's just going to continue until the people of the new right, the white men of the new right, have had enough. And then they will go violent extreme as designed by the Jesuits, and their violence will be calculated and directed by certain of the Jesuit order's coadjutors.
Well, Brother Eric, I was just thinking you're talking about the Hegelian. Well, we didn't mention the term the Hegelian dialectic, but we've been talking about it. That's basically where you have both sides playing against each other, left, right, conservative, liberal.
That's right. At the top, they're working together. That has to be the conclusion. You can prove it. But until that conclusion is accepted, then people will be under the delusion that the right doesn't work with the left and that they're separate, they're real enemies, and they're not at the top. That's why Chuck Schumer said one of his associates said, "Look, Trump likes me. He likes me. They're both in New York. They work together. They're both by the Freemasons. One extreme, the other extreme. To the end result, well, maybe an upcoming war and no voting anymore. So that'll be the end of the Congress, the end of any kind of limited government, and it'll be in the absolute power of the commander-in-chief, Holy Roman Emperor."
Okay, and something I wanted to mention, and I forgot to do this last time, but I understand that back in 2014, Tucker Carlson, whom I believe was still with Fox News at the time, asked Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, if he could write a letter recommending that Buckley Carlson, the son of Tucker, could get into Georgetown. And on a regular basis, Tucker would trash talk Joe Biden when he was senator, vice president, and later president. But he would go to Joe Biden. Tucker would go to Joe Biden's son, Hunter, and say, "Hey, would you mind writing this letter of recommendation to get my son Buckley into Georgetown?"
See, that's a perfect evidence, George. I never knew that. Thank you for teaching me that. But that's another proof that they work together. Well, look at the children of Biden and the children of Trump. Most of them will go to Georgetown or some Jesuit university. They work together. That's why I was saying Biden put Trump in office with his terrible policies of letting in 7 million alien invaders, drove all the white men to the new right because we don't want to be displaced by these invaders. But most of the white men of the new right think it's the Jews that it's displacing or replacing them. It's not the Jesuit order and the papacy.
Now, for what is worth, Buckley Carlson, Tucker's son, did not end up going to Georgetown. I believe he went to University of Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going from memory here. But at least he applied there. So, and I'm sure he could have ended up going there if he, really wanted to, because I'm sure his dad through the CIA could have pulled strings.
Sure, it took her as a CIA asset. Maybe they decided it's not good policy to see your son go to Georgetown because there's a lot of talk about the Jesuits. So we'll send him somewhere else, but he'll get essentially the same education.
Mhm. Okay, well, it's just like, well, there are a number of people who started out at a Jesuit school, but ended up getting their sheepskin from a non-Catholic school. For example, Donald Trump started out at Fordham, but ended up getting his degree from University of Pennsylvania. His daughter Ivanka
Which
started
is
out.
about the same because the University of Pennsylvania is another leftist, socialist, communist university here. My son went to it, told me all about it, what they were doing. And so it's the same Marxian, socialist, communist, Jesuitical religion they teach in all the universities.
Okay, I mean the examples are almost endless.
Yeah,
So I think I said he started out at Fordham, then he transferred to University of Pennsylvania. His daughter Ivanka started out at Georgetown, but then got her degree from University of Pennsylvania. Jerry Brown, who held several offices in California, including governor, started out at Santa Clara University, where he was a seminarian, but ended up transferring to University of California, Berkeley.
which is the same thing because they have a Jesuit house on that Berkeley campus, and it's right across the bay from the Jesuit University of San Francisco. So Berkeley and USF work together.
Mhm. Okay, so anyhow, so something I want to talk about, the whole Charlie Kirk situation took place 9, 10 days ago. But I just like to talk about some things that have happened. Well, okay, before I get to that, and I know you've done several streams on this, and so forgive me if I belabor this. So, as I said,
I will give you a dispensation, George.
okay, thank you.
Three Our
So,
Fathers and two Hail Marys, and you got the dispensation. Okay.
okay, so the Patsy, the Lee Harvey Oswald of today, the Sirhan, the James Earl Ray of today, he's 22 years old. He grew up in a Mormon household in Utah, and he's a homosexual. He lives with his lover or his roommate, and his lover is allegedly transferring or transitioning into becoming a woman.
Yeah, I
I
think
think.
he's black too. I think he's black too. I saw a picture of him, but it didn't stress that point. But I think he is.
Oh, okay. I did not. As Johnny Carson used to say, Ed, I did not know that.
I
But
saw the picture of him, but they never elaborated. So, but go ahead.
okay, so he checks off all the diversity
Oh
boxes,
yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
which reminds me. Speaking of
But you
beaten
see,
down.
George, they had to do this. They had to they had to fashion this guy as the most left wing, vicious, communist, progressive, whatever you want to call him, so that when Hannity, that pimp for the Pope, blames the left for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, they all center their attention on this alleged assassin who never shot anybody. Go ahead.
Okay, now I believe he was seeing a psychiatrist, and so you're talking MK Ultra or whatever they
Yes,
call you.
that makes it even worse.
Okay, so they may very well convict him, or he may plead guilty, but he's not doing this of his own volition, or he wouldn't do that of his own volition. So,
And who knows what they've told him? Because he's been told, listen, you're going to be our patsy and we'll take care of you. We'll make sure that your death is faked and go to prison, your death is faked and you'll be off someplace else. And we'll give your parents $1 million and it'll be an offshore account somewhere. You just got to agree to be this patsy. So I'm sure he has.
okay, so anyhow, they are okay. So, I guess on Monday, I guess a few days ago, Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, I realize we have an international audience, and not everybody is familiar with our TV shows. So, one of the major networks we have in the US, broadcast network, is ABC, American Broadcast Corporation. And one of the late night programs they have is called Jimmy Kimmel Live out of Southern California. So, I'm just saying that for people who are living over Europe or Australia or wherever. So I guess on Monday, he made a comment on his show, and I don't think he did this of his own accord. This is almost certainly scripted, but he basically said, "Hey, we know who killed Charlie Kirk," and they're trying to say, somebody on the left, when in actuality, it was somebody on their side, a so-called conservative. And so Jimmy Kimmel got fired from his program. They canceled it.
It sounds
Now,
like he came a little bit too close to the truth. Because they did the same thing with Joy Reid, that black, savage, racist wench working for MSNBC, when she said Donald Trump was never shot. And she was absolutely right. So the left and the right works together to get rid of her because we can't be circulating that truth around. Go ahead.
okay, so who exactly is James Christopher Kimmel? Well, he's 58 years old. He was born on the 13th of November, 1967. And I know that may sound like superfluous information. And since January 26, 2003, so for just over 22 years, he's been hosting this program. And he he grew up Roman Catholic and was an altar boy. The place where it's filmed was the original Masonic Temple for Los Angeles.
So the place where they were filming his broadcasts was in the original Masonic Lodge in Los Angeles. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Well, do you think there's a Masonic connection with him?
Well, that sounds like an unfounded conspiracy theory, if you ask me.
Of course. So if Johnny
Okay,
Carson
so
was a Freemason, you could probably, let's rest assured that Kimmel's one too. They're both
oh,
working
okay,
for the Pope.
okay. So the original announcer for the Jimmy Kimmel show is Lou Wilson, Zachary Lou Wilson, and he got his undergrad degree from Boston College,
And what is Boston College, George?
Jesuit.
It's probably the second or third largest Jesuit universities in this country.
Uh, yes. So okay, so the second announcer for the Jimmy Kimmel show from 2004 to 2022 was Dickie Barrett, Richard Michael Barrett, who was born on 22nd of June 1964. So he's 61 years old, and he's from the Boston, Massachusetts area, and he went to Xavier and Brother High School.
Xavier Brotherhood High School, is that what you said?
Correct.
And who was Francis Xavier?
He was one of the co-founders of the Jesuits.
Yes, one of the most powerful men next to Ignatius Loyola, Francis Xavier. Right.
Okay, so two of the three announcers for this program were trained by the Jesuits. That seems odd.
Well, when you know that the typical entertainment is left-wing socialist communists, we must always assume that a Jesuit is there because they're the masters of communism and not the Jews, as I prove in my book. They have Jewish proxies that they use, but the Jews are not the masters of communism. The Jesuits are. So there's got to be a Jesuit hand somewhere when you look at these individuals. And remember, too, that the Democratic Convention or the Democratic debate was held at Loyola in Los Angeles between, what was it, Biden and Trump back in 2020. So the Jesuits are extremely involved in Americans must begin to look for their presence everywhere. They're analyzing everything like you do, George. Well, here's Jesuit influence here, or somebody graduated from the Jesuit college here. And this is important because Turning Point USA is now run by a Jesuitess, Erica Kirk, the ex-wife of Charlie Kirk, and we're going to see what she does with Turning Point. Go ahead.
Well, and of course, so so at the behest of Donald Trump, I guess the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, put pressure on put pressure on ABC, which owns the Jimmy Kimmel show, to basically fire
ABC is CFR connected, and the
Yes.
Archbishop of New York City controls the CFR, every last one. So the Archbishop had one of his knights give a little phone call to, what was it, CBS, ABC?
ABC.
ABC to get rid of Kimmel. Call was made and then it was done. It's just that simple. That's how a military operation works. And this is entirely military. The papacy is a military operation. All the archbishops and cardinals are military officers, subject to the great general of Rome himself, Pope, subject to his praetorian, his praetor, running the praetorian guard, the Jesuit general. It's all military. Go ahead.
Okay, so the chairman of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is Brennan Carr, and he got his master's degree from Catholic University of America.
Which is the second most powerful university next to Georgetown. It's not far away from Georgetown either. Catholic University has several Knights of Malta on the trustee board, and very powerful, very influential. And they always are going to place their graduates within somewhere within the Jesuit empire, the Blackpool Blues controls.
Okay, if you look at the leadership of the FCC, several prominent members have Catholic/Jesuitical education, such as the chief of staff is Scott Delacourt, Delacor, Court, Delacourt, and he got his undergrad degree from Georgetown University.
Okay. So he gets his graduate degree there, for undergrad degree, and then he's sent out for a master's or wherever, with the understanding that this is where he went. So we will find a place for our student to work for us. Remember, the Jesuits boast quite a bit about placing like 98% of their graduates because they're working for businesses and agencies controlled by the order.
Okay, so if I can just mention a couple other names, there's Danielle Tumon. She's senior counsel for the FCC. She got her law degree from Catholic University of America, as did Aaron Boone.
Okay, so here we have two more grads, Jesuit universities, and running the FCC.
And not to bore you, but there's Callie Coker, Coker. She got her undergraduate degree from St. Mary's College in La Moraga, California, which is just east of Oakland. So you have 5 people who run the FCC who have Jesuit or Jesuitical Jesuit slash Catholic education. Oh, there's one more. I'm sorry. There's Matt Mittelstadt. I guess he's of German descent. He got his undergrad degree from University of Dayton, which in Ohio, which is Catholic. So you have 5 or 6 people who have these Roman educations.
Well, very good. I'm sure they're working out well for the Jesuits and their Holy Roman 14th Amendment, Socialist, Communist, Corporate, Fascist American Empire. From sea to shining sea. Go ahead, George.
Okay, so this may sound like a silly question, but why do you think they've saturated the FCC with all these Jesuit puppets?
Because the FCC is controlled by the Emergency War Powers military government that in March 9th, 1933, with the approval and confirming of the proclamations by the Congress and their Emergency Banking Relief Act, brought Trading with the Enemy Act inside the country. So we are really under Trading with the Enemy Act, and this calls for one of the things in it, which is control or censorship of the press. That's why they can do it. That's why they do it every day. We're under Trading with the Enemy. It's brought inside the country with the Emergency Banking Relief Act. So it's not just enemies overseas, everybody in the country's enemy.
Okay, so for those who don't know, there again, for those outside the United States, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, they basically determine who can get a radio station on the radio, a radio band, AM or FM, or who can get a TV station.
Yeah, it's an
And they
utter
could,
dictatorship over communication.
uh,
And
correct.
it's controlled by the commander in chief. Because if there is someone that arises that believes in real freedom of speech and wants to tell the truth, all they need to do is pick up the phone, talk to the Holy Roman Emperor, the commander in chief, tell him to remove this individual at FCC, and he'll be removed within 24 hours. That's how it works. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to now we are talking about Charlie Kirk earlier. If I could just mention some of the observations he made. Now, except for when it came to the Catholic Church, I agree with almost everything he said. When it came to marriage, these insane leftist policies, I completely agree. Now, I understand that
Well,
people.
let's give a little background of it. Number one, he was raised Presbyterian. And if there's any Protestant church that should be anti-papal, it should be the Presbyterians. But it's not. Presbyterian Church now is apostate, not anti-Roman. He revised their Westminster Confession of Faith, 1964 or something like that. And so it doesn't go after the papacy like it once did. Presbyterian Church has gone off these new Bibles. They've departed from the Reformation Bible of the English Scottish Reformation. And so as a result, that infiltrated or influenced Kirk so that he used another Bible, not the Reformation English Bible, the AB 67, and that he then began to consider Roman Catholics Christians, and that he wanted the betterment, the improvement of the Roman Catholic Church. I put this in my documentary. So he was not anti-Vatican. He was not anti-papal. And he should have been. That brought him down. Go ahead.
Okay, well, one of the comments he made, and that they use, various people has used evidence against him for being a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, whatever they call him, is that he said, well, I want the most competent people possible to do in a high stress, high risk job, such as an airline pilot. I want to make sure somebody who's flying the plane is not a diversity, equity, inclusion hire. If I have somebody who's doing surgery on my heart or my brain, I want to make sure that he knows what he's doing.
That's right. Well, this has been going
And
on for years with affirmative action. Just give the blacks the job. They don't have to be qualified. When they get there, they botch things up. They've been doing it for years. I know sheriffs that have complained about it with their deputies. I can give you 5 examples. And I was stationed with a guy in the Air Force. He was to go to the academy, and they gave it to some black because they had a certain amount of blacks that had to go to the academy. So he was shut out because of racism and bigotry with affirmative action. So anybody that tells the truth about that is branded as a racist and a bigot, like I have been. But anybody who knows me knows I don't hate anybody because of their race or religion, or gender. I do hate what they believe, and I hate what they do. And I will have to resist it unto blood, striving against sin, as Hebrews 12:4 says. But no, the real racists are the ones that are calling you the racists. White supremacy is a canard to get you to shut up, white man. Stop telling the truth about how many times you've been robbed, raped, and mugged by these savage blacks in the major cities. You start talking about that, well, you're a racist. That's why you can't talk about it. That's why Trump, when he put the picture of that dear little white Ukrainian woman up that had been murdered by that black savage, Trump didn't say that she was murdered by a black savage on a train, but he just put his picture up so everybody can see it. But you can't bring out the black on white crime. You can't talk about it. You can't talk about it in the press here. That is forbidden. So because they want more of it, because that justifies the creation of the new right. More black on white crime, the more they like it. And that's Jesuitism. Absolutely.
okay, if I could just mention something purely anecdotal, I've known a number of people over the years who are in law enforcement and firefighters. And I knew this firefighter when I was living in Sacramento. And he said, back, Joe was his name. And he said, back during the 1970s, he didn't say this, the powers that be in San Francisco said, well, you know what? we don't have any female firefighters in the San Francisco Fire Department. Therefore, we need to do everything we can to rectify that. So not only do we want to recruit women, by the year 1980, that was their target date, we want to have parity, to be 50% female. So they did everything
So they can drop the fire hoses and they can't lift the weight they need to lift, and give being preferential treatment. So when that treatment is given, the buildings continue to burn down
and people die.
and people die. That's right. But we gave them preference. Isn't that wonderful? So it's obvious the results of that. And anybody who wants to have a society with an organized society with competent people working in their particular trades or professions, they have to be able to perform, and you do not reduce the standards for them simply because they're black or a woman or lesbian or whatever.
Right? Okay, so they did their best. They offered insane signing bonuses, hundreds of dollars back then. And they went to high schools, they went to colleges. They said, "Oh, sign up with the San Francisco Fire Department, if you're a female." And they couldn't get anywhere near their goal. It got maybe 10, 20%. And they had to lower all their standards. Like you had to be able to run a mile in a certain period of time. You had to be able to carry a hose, get up a ladder, and none of them could pass it.
Right.
So they just
they do. You lower the standards so they can pass it, just like they did with the blacks. We're going to lower the standards of entrance exams so they can get in, so that we can give them a scholarship and place them in places of professions or power where they're incompetent. So that's what the Jesuits want. They want an incompetent society here that doesn't function properly. There's no responsibility. So we will favor anybody but the white man. And I'm not saying all white men are competent, but I'm saying the vast majority are. And I'm saying it's still a white nation, thank God, and it's still a place for white people to excel if they really want to, particularly the Protestants, the Baptists.
Okay, so you remember when Joe Biden was president, or even before he became president, he said, if elected, I guess he said this in 2019, 2020, he said, if elected, I would appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court. Regardless of what her qualifications were, he would do it. And
this one doesn't have the qualifications. That's right. So you're right, George. So he's going to do that because he's working for the Jesuits.
Well, it also doesn't hurt. She's black and her husband is white, Patrick Jackson, and he's also a professor at Georgetown University.
Okay, so we're playing the canard of interracial marriage, shoving that down, white Western civilization, destroy it. And then we're going to make the Jesuits connected there because what her husband's connected to the Jesuits, her white husband. And then we will appoint her, but for anybody that really deserves it, like Clarence Thomas, which I believe is a conservative individual, even though Roman Catholic, he's light years ahead of her in intelligence and ability to speak and ability to make right decisions. So we're going to put a woman up there. She's going to be a black leftist, further destroy the Supreme Court for the purpose of making the commander-in-chief absolute one day, when there will be no Supreme Court, when there will be no Congress, Senate, and House, and there will be no Congress. It's gone. No Congress, no Supreme Court. There'll only be the Holy Roman Emperor, the absolute dictator, because of the necessity of the times. And that's where they're going with all of this.
Okay, so do you think Congress could still be around in a ceremonial function?
No. No, they're going to destroy, they're going to blow the Capitol building, and there's going to be a lot of people killed, and it'll justify further extremities and absolutisms by the commander-in-chief. So he's going to close it down, as Hitler closed down the Reichstag, and he's going to center all power in himself and move the capital to Denver. So now we'll have a whole different country, a whole different absolutist government, and the Jesuits out of Regis there in Denver will probably be the great advisors of the commander-in-chief. He moves there.
Well, if I could just make one other cheesy movie reference. Did you ever see the 1996 film Mars Attacks?
Mars Attack?
Yes,
I've,
Mars Attacks.
I've never seen Mars Attack.
Okay, not a particularly good film, although it had an all-star cast: Jack Nicholson, Michael J. Fox, all the usual suspects. So there's a scene in the movie where the Martians are speaking to Congress and they're supposed to be giving a speech through an interpreter, but then they pull out their ray guns and they kill all the members of Congress. So you don't think the Jesuits were tipping their hand, do you?
Could be. I mean, they could bring the Muslims here because they had a huge 40,000 man Muslim celebration in Dearborn a week or so ago. Thousands of them. And so all the Jesuits have to do, the leader has to give them command. And the Muslim leaders will give the command to their slaves to start raping, pillaging, and destroying in the major cities. And maybe one of the places will be DC. You got a big Muslim population in DC. Maybe they'll break into the Capitol building and kill the congressman, and that would be justified to kill them. I mean, the Jesuits have many strings to play, many strings. It's our job to try to figure out what strings they're going to play.
Okay, so anyhow, so that would justify Trump or whoever is in office at the time to deploy the National Guard permanently in places like DC.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then round up all the Muslims and send them to the FEMA camps. I think that's even portrayed in the movie with Denzel Washington years ago when the Muslims were being rounded up in DC. I can't remember the movie name of it.
Was it Under Siege?
I don't know if it's Under Siege. That was Steven Seagal's movie. But it's
Oh, okay. Yes, it came out like 97, 90, just before, just a few years before 9/11.
yeah. And so they blamed the Muslims and started rounding them up in the buses. So I think that, of course, you got Denzel Washington, who's a good Jesuit, trained by a Jesuit, support him to play the part of a leader there in the FBI. But you know, these movies are merely suggestions of what we may or may not do, but you need to be informed.
Ah, so anyhow, but as I said, they tell us in advance, usually decades, what their plans are or what their contingencies are. And so, how many times have there been films like Independence Day where they did the aforementioned Mars attacks where they destroy the White House?
Yeah, they want to fake an alien invasion, that's for sure. But the end game is to centralize all power in the hands of one man. That's Jesuitism 101. They're the great absolutists. Absolutists like Mao, Hitler, Stalin, and others that they bring to power. Pinochet, Juan Perón. That's their game when they, Mussolini, when they bring someone to power, all power to do essentially what he wants
Uh, okay, could I just mention something on a completely different note? This has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk, but it could have something to do with building the new right. And this is like a completely local story, so forgive me if I alienate most of your audience. Just over 2 years ago, I guess in June of 2023, I guess the 13th or so, there was a vegan animal rights activist by the name of Zoe Rosenberg, who at the time, I guess, was a senior at University of California, Berkeley. And I guess she's part of an organization called Direct Action Committee. And they're an animal rights group. And now I know this may sound like a joke, but I'm not making this up. Um, no, it's called Direct Action Committee, I believe. And so they're, as I said, they're an animal rights organization. So back in June of 2023, so just over 2 years ago, she broke into a place called Petaluma Poultry, which is just south of where I lived. And she basically stole four chickens. And it's a relatively minor offense, but the Petaluma Poultry said they were going to charge her as a domestic terrorist, and she was looking at up to life in prison. But the cooler heads prevailed, I guess, and they said, well, she's now looking at 5 years. Now, why do I
Five
bring this?
years for stealing 4 chickens? I mean, come on. She needs to be prosecuted for breaking and entering, theft, which would bring her, I don't know, 60 days in the cooler. I mean, they're going to give her more than what they've given these black savage murderers that they've sent to prison. I know one guy got 3 years. Murdered one of one of my friend's brothers. Gave him 3 years. So, you know, it's more outrage. And of course, the judiciary is so outrageous anyway. It's been our enemy since 1938 with their military jurisdiction. So it wouldn't surprise me what they would do. Go ahead.
Okay, so why do I bring this up? So this took place in my county, Sonoma County. So the district attorney is Carla Rodriguez. I know I have discussed her before. So just as a reminder, she got her undergraduate degree from La Moraga. I'm sorry, St. Mary's College, which is in La Moraga, a Catholic school, and she got her law degree from Santa Clara University.
And what's
So,
Santa Clara University, George?
Jesuit.
Thank you.
Also, however, talking about controlling both sides, Zoe's attorney is Chris Caraway, and he got his law degree from Georgetown. Now, this whole thing sounds ridiculous, but they're trying to paint her as I said, like she's like the Jewish Osama bin Laden.
Oh, so she's a Jew too.
Or her name is Zoe Rosenberg.
Oh, of course. So this nut breaks in for animal rights and steals some chickens, and they make sure she's a Jew, so we can blame the Jews for another crazy act. It's typical Jesuit theater.
And of course, she said, I want to save the trees and save the spotted owl and save the chickens. And so the whole
Why
thing,
doesn't she go to Africa and go to the Congo there in North Congo, where the savage blacks, with their white man's weapons, have killed off all the rhinos? Why doesn't she go there and try to find a female rhino and a male rhino where she can possibly save the rhinoceroses? Maybe she could denounce these black savages that have killed all these rhino for the rhino horn that's worth like solid gold. Why not? That would be racism and prejudice to try to save the rhino from black savages killing them all. Go ahead, George.
okay, so they had to basically, I'm not saying she's a passy, but she's the full girl, if you will. But I think the whole thing seems a little contrived. Yes, she may very well have done this, but you're right. She should have been looking at like maybe a couple months behind bars, or maybe got a suspended sentence. Don't do that. But now, she's looking at, she probably won't get 5 years. But what this does is this reinforces the stereotype as, oh no, we need to deal with these crazy Jews,
That's
these
right.
crazy communist Jews.
That's right. That's exactly right.
In
Betraying
that,
their own people, betraying their own people into the hands of the Pope's new right.
and well, and it gets to the point to where now, I know it may sound funny, why am I bringing this up? Well, I'm sure there's numerous examples of this across the country and in other places where you have these. She actually may believe her own silliness. I'll just put it that way. But this was a front page news item, and
Yeah,
so
and who runs the newspaper? Some coadjutor. So he puts it on the front page of the newspaper. When I went to jail over a matter of principle, without a driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, and I made my own plate for my car, which is a first degree misdemeanor. When I went to jail, I asked the Lancaster New Era to come and attend my trial. They didn't attend. And furthermore, they didn't even attend my conviction in the newspaper. We were all gathered around, all of us convicted. He said, "Hey, Phillips, you're not even here in the newspaper." Why? Well, because they don't want this kind of action in the public eye. So the newspapers are absolutely controlled, censored, and what they put in it has a real secret purpose, we have to figure it out every time.
Okay. Well, you see, who runs the local paper, the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, which is my local rag?
Yeah.
Well, that's owned by the Sonoma Media Group. They own 5 or 6 English radio stations, AM and FM.
Yeah.
And they also own the newspaper, the aforementioned Press Democrats.
And
Well, the chairman,
who controls that? Who runs that
well,
organization?
well, the chairman is Larry Armaduro. So he and his wife are Eucharistic ministers at Holy Spirit Catholic Church in Santa Rosa.
There we go. So it sounds like a right-wing Catholic operation, and part of the new right, and we will not allow anything truly conservative that would have any sort of Protestant liberty involved, Bible-based liberty involved in our newspaper.
Okay, so you know how a few minutes ago we talked about who runs the FCC and how, I guess, for over a month or so, Donald Trump has been bantering back and forth with the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois as to whether he's going to sit in National Guard troops there because of the rampant crime, i.e., black on
He's
white.
bantering back and forth between the mayor of Chicago, who is a savage black communist, not wanting any sort of peace to be brought to Chicago. And I've watched these videos of the people in Chicago say, we want that here right now. So they're being betrayed by their own black leaders in Chicago.
Okay. Well, so who runs Chicago? Yes, I know that Brandon Johnson, he's the front man in Chi-Town. But these are the people who are on
He's a
his
coolie.
staff.
He's a coolie. He's a little altar boy for the Archbishop of Chicago.
Okay, correct. So who's on his staff? Well, the deputy mayor of Chicago is Kari Humphreys, and she went to St. Xavier University in Illinois. Also,
Jesuit University.
Penny Smith is the deputy chief of staff for the mayor, and she went to University of St. Francis in, I believe, Illinois.
Or another Catholic university.
Correct. And then you also have Emily Melby, who's the director of City Council Intergovernmental Affairs. So she's the liaison between the mayor and the city council. She got her undergrad degree from DePaul University.
Are all these white women?
Is mixed.
I see. So it doesn't matter, white women, black women, we're going to have them there just so long as they got a Catholic education or a Jesuit education. Okay. Because remember,
Correct.
the women are absolutely subject to the Jesuits. Whatever order they're given, they're going to do. They're perfect Tobies for the Jesuits who, when they know, they will do exactly what they're told. Go ahead.
Okay, so then you also have Erin Connolly, who's of Irish descent. She's the director of communications, so she's a spokeswoman for the mayor. She got her undergrad and law degree from DePaul in Chicago, which is Catholic.
Yep.
So you have this Irish Roman Catholic who's Catholic educated, who is basically the mouthpiece for the mayor.
For the black mayor.
Correct.
For the black, hatefully racist, socialist, communist mayor. Dan. Fits the design perfectly.
So somebody pointed this out to me recently. Look at just in the United States, look at all these cities that are run not just by Democrats, but they're generally speaking run by blacks or
Yep.
women or a combination thereof.
And all those cities are trashed in a mess. Yes, sir. Because
I mean,
I believe blacks and women are in a subordinate capacity, and you put them in a leadership role, and you're going to have horrible, terrible things happen. And prove me wrong. Show me any black leader of a city that's brought the place to prosperity and a middle class, freedom of speech. Show me one. There may be, but I don't know of any.
okay, I mean, you have the current mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, who went to Morris Brothers College in Poughkeepsie, New York.
And how's New York doing? How's New York City doing under his mayorship?
Well,
It's a hellhole. And that's what he's turned it into. If he was the real mayor of New York, he'd say, we're turning around all these alien invaders in New York City and we're putting them out of our city. They're out. And we're rounding them all up and they're gone. That's what a leader would do in a city like that. By the way, these Hispanics hate the blacks. So they're victimizing blacks. So, hey, Mr. Black Mayor, maybe you ought to do your job and protect the people of your city. He won't do it because he's run by Jesuits out of Fordham.
Ah, and well, and of course, things are probably only to get worse in the Big Apple because Zohar Mandati is probably going to win the election.
Yeah, they're gonna make him mayor, and then it's gonna be then the Jews of New York City will really be worried, and that will drive them to the new right. All the leftist, socialist, communist Jews will be flooding into the new right. Go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, among other things, he's talking about doubling the property taxes for Queens, which, if those know, has historically been white. That is like one of the major white enclaves of New York City. Yes,
Yeah, we got to go after the white man now. The white man's in privilege here, so we got to take everything he ever worked for to destroy the middle class, destroy white. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so also one of the things he's talked about doing is implementing a minimum wage of $30 an hour. So that'll essentially put a kill job on most of the small businesses, including the restaurant.
And so who benefits? The big corporations that the white power structure controls. So whatever this savage Muslim Arab does, Mondavi or whatever his name is, it's going to benefit the white power structure in control of all the monopolistic corporations.
Well, okay, and this is, there again, this is purely anecdotal. Historically, at least in the Northeast, the police departments have been run by the Irish Catholics. Right. That's true in New York City, Boston, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, right. And I know Chicago in the Midwest and even San Francisco. But that started in places like New York City, that started changing during the 1990s. And typically you'd have, cops with names like Murphy, O'Brien, O'Malley.
Hey, if you watch RoboCop, RoboCop's name is Murphy.
Okay. All right. So, but during the 1990s, so about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, that started changing. They started hiring Sikhs and people like that, and people from the Far East, people from India, people from Pakistan. Not so much
Hispanic. The savages that all they produce is savage cultures and savage nations. That's right.
And so they basically
women are trashed. Yeah.
So the Irish Catholics basically have had hegemony in New York City in terms of law enforcement for about a century and a half. But that started changing, say, during the 1990s. And the Irish Catholic cops aren't too happy about that. So wait a second, this is our police. Okay, it's supposed to be the New York City Police Department, but this is our police department. We're being supplanted.
And what's that driving them to? What's that making all those white men that are Irish Catholics? What's their solution to that? To go with Trump, to go into the new right, with the blessing of the Archbishop of New York. You think the mafia is against bringing all these savages into New York City? They're all for it. The Roman Catholic Italian mafia and their commission is all for it. And so it happens. We get some cheap labor here. Don't care about the white people. Archbishop says, okay, we'll further destroy this civilization because after all, we're very, very wealthy anyway, as mafia does. And we really don't care who works for us.
Okay, so that is really, so then there's not just, the Sikhs and the Pakistanis and people from the Far East, you're dealing with blacks and Puerto Ricans and women. That something that really was bad for morale in places like New York City, but any department, was saying they had to hire women to be beat cops. Now, we mentioned the problems there have been with them being allowed to be firefighters, but it's just as bad when you allow them to be beat cops.
I had a brother-in-law once. He was in Oregon, He worked with a female cop, and this one big black criminal hated women, hated white women, of course. And so he managed to get his hands on her, and nearly killed her, beat her half to death. And I thought, well, that's terrible, but that's what comes with the road, lady. And so you better learn how to fight, and you better learn how to shoot. You better learn who wants to kill you. That's exactly what she got. And that's why I had a supporter. His name was Michael Donahue. He was a cop in Oregon for years. And he said, women have no business being police officers. They're distractions and they get killed. But anyway, it doesn't matter what the common sense guy wants. The guy's been out there on the beat. All that matters is what the religious philosophics want. Go ahead, George.
Well,
We're going to have to close this up here shortly now. So you want to make your final comments?
well, yes. So, well, it'll be interesting if they were, just in conclusion, it'll be interesting if they come up with another Charlie Kirk type figure, somebody to fill the void. And I realize that that's going to be difficult to do. Some speculation is that Nick Fuentes might pick up the mantle. That's possible.
He's too extreme right now. He's not going to do it. There'll be somebody else. Maybe Tucker Carlson. Well, what's her name? Erica Kirk says she's running it. She's going to be running a Turning Point. So maybe it's going to be Ben Shapiro, the Jew.
Okay, so, well, I mean, all right, well, he's like 40 plus, which is, relatively young, but they want somebody probably under 30 right now, who's, I mean, so Fuentes would fit the bill, but somebody not quite as caustic as he is. And I don't know. I'm sure they can get somebody else, but I just don't. I mean, Ben Shapiro just has too much baggage, and I'm not sure if the right would embrace somebody who's openly Jewish, and not just Jewish, but openly Zionist.
Well, and who covered up the stand down order so that the Israeli army did not stop the savage murder of Hamas when they attacked 23. He doesn't say that was a stand down order. He doesn't say the government of Israel made the military stand down. So he doesn't say it. So that's another severe problem with him.
Okay. So, and by the way, Kirk didn't actually come out and say the Israeli Defense Forces stood down on October the 7th, almost 2 years ago. He said, did they? He said, it looks that way, or they might have.
Well, I read a piece that said that he said they did to save the office of Netanyahu. So he did say that, but it was much more than saving the prime ministership of Benjamin Netanyahu. Much more.
Who, by the way, as a brother who did graduate work at Georgetown.
Yes,
I know.
Yes, say that. Netanyahu's brother did graduate work at Jesuit Georgetown. So it's another link of Netanyahu to the Jesuits. Yeah. Okay, Brother George, it's time to end this.
Okay, so shall I give my...
The listeners are getting tired of me, but they're not tired of you, but we need to end this, George.
Okay, well, fair enough. If people have any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, if there's a topic they'd like me to cover or go over again, please email me at George Widger, GEORWID, GER1969 at gmail.com. George Widger, GEORWID,
GEORGE, GER 1969, the Apollo moon landing at what? Gmail.com.
Correct. So, and if you want to send me an article, please do so, or a video or whatever. If it's not in English, please send me a translation. And so I like hearing from people from various places over the earth. So please let me know where you're emailing me from, and just tell me a little bit about yourself, how long you've been listening. Maybe send me a recipe. Who knows? Just I'll trust your good judgment.
All right, Brother George, thank you for being with us today. Brother Eric John Phelps, 24/7 World Radio Podcast. I would book Vatican Assassins, House of My Friends. You get the ebook at 24/7 radio, VaticanAssassins.org. Actually, VaticanAssassins.org. I have other things there for your interest. And you can get my broadcast the last 10 or 12 years if you're interested in that at 24/7 radio. And also, please send your donations to RBT, P.O. Box 306, Newmanstown, Pennsylvania 17073. Or RBPB Church, or pardon me, RBPB Donate at Comcast.net. RBPB Donate at Comcast.net. Or you can send me a gift to Cash App at hashtag Eric, ERIC, John, JON, Phelps, PHELPS. So any gifts are dearly appreciated. Use them to work in the ministry here and also for the sustenance of my family. So, and also give to those in need. Done this several times too. So that's the information, and I want to thank you for tuning in to this podcast. Trust that we will be able to turn away the anti-Jewish fury that the Jesuits are building every day and turn it on them, that the Jesuits are the ones behind the killing of Kirk, not the Jews, that the Jesuits are the ones behind the Masonic Jewish Labor Zionist government of Israel, not the Jews, that the Jesuits are behind the emergency war powers military government here in the United States, not the Jews, to the end that American people will wake up of the power and the history of the Jesuit order and begin to stand against it, particularly white men with money. You white men with money need to start spending it, because if you don't, it's going to be Constantinople all over again. The men of wealth and power didn't spend their money to resist the Muslim attack, and so Constantinople fell in 1453. Is that what we're going to have here? I hope not. It's time for you white men to be valiant for the truth in the earth, to spend your time and money and effort to stop this, because there's nobody coming on a white horse. It's got to be you wherever you are. So, till we meet again, may the Lord bless you as you read his word, the AB 1611 in its present edition of 1769, the Reformation Bible. And as you seek to do his will according to his word and his will, as we may know his will as we read his word. Till then, Maranatha, Lord bless you.
Okay, we'll take care, brother.
Lord bless George.